Hello everybody, it's Romania Black, and guess what? I couldn't wait. No! I'm so sorry I'm watching so far ahead on Berserk, but it honestly, one, it's become like a comfort anime. Two, after last episode with Casca and Guts in the cave, and Griffith trying to make a decision of do they go and look for Guts, or do they go and defeat the enemy first? It's like, what are we gonna do? So I thought about it. I was like, oh, I'm going to wait a couple days. I'm going to wait a while till I get some more Berserk comments. It's going to be fine. And then I was like, it's starting to rain outside. And it's like there's a thunderstorm outside. And I was like, or it's very atmospheric or a thunderstorm to watch Berserk. And in there, and it's raining in this episode. It's fate, right? The Behelit spoke and it's fate, right? So of course, because I'm watching ahead, I don't have any comments. However, it has been brought to my attention. I've not been watching the English dub just because I really don't have time right now to. And also, I don't know. I've just been kind of fearful. I know people say the dub's really good, but I was like, oh, but I really like the voice actors for the sub. So I'm like, I don't know. And then in the Discord today, I was told that the voice of Adon is the same voice as Dr. Robotnik from Sonic the Hedgehog in the English dub, and I was like, oh no, I have to hear it now. Because I was the biggest Sonic the Hedgehog fan as a kid. I don't think y'all can comprehend how much I loved Sonic the Hedgehog as a kid. Like, all the Sega games, all the comic books, like, I was obsessed. And so I was like, oh, well, I need to go hear it. Yeah, you can tell really quick. I went back and watched episode 11 in the English dub. The voice actor for Guts is really good. The voice actor for Griffith is really good. Casca is really good. The main cast in the English dub is really good. And usually for English dub, your main characters are done really well. The only thing in English dub that gets weird, and I don't know why, is the side characters. Like the little side characters out the side, they're like, oh yeah, yeah. They sound like Goofy, and I don't know why that is always like that in English dub. I'm like, you can make them sound like normal people. It's okay. You don't have to exaggerate. I don't understand it. It's like that in a lot of English dub, and especially in the 90s. I don't understand that, but it was good. But yes, Adon's voice is Dr. Robotnik, and it's really funny. And now I will never know his voice as anything but Dr. Robotnik. It makes me like his character a wee bit more, even though he's horrible. He's a dork, let's be real. He's a dork character. But yeah, so Casca is knocked out in the cave, and Guts, I appreciated in the English dub that the lines were pretty much beat for beat the same in the English dub as they were the Japanese sub. Sometimes in English dub in the 90s, they take a few liberties, and there was a really long pause before English dub Guts said that it's hard to be a woman, and I was like, English dub, if you don't say that, I'm gonna have issues. Because that's a major line. For Guts to say that about Casca and admit she has it hard because she's a woman, that's a big step in Guts' character development. So I'm glad the dub had that. But yes, I am drinking out of a red cup. It's soda, don't worry. And so I am really excited. It's rainy outside. It seemed appropriate to watch this episode. And when I pulled it up, I'm not gonna lie, I got a little concerned about this episode. One, because the playlist that I'm watching it on, it wasn't on there. And I started to freak out just a little bit. I was like, it went from 10, 11, 13, and I was like, now wait a minute, where's episode 12? So I went to the person I'm getting this from, I went to their whole video catalog and it was there, and I was like, oh good. But also when I clicked on it, it had a, you have to click that you're over 18 and has sensitive content and you're okay with that. And I was like, oh my. So I don't know what that means, but I think it's the first time I've had to click this is going to be content that's inappropriate. And I'm like, we've had like blood and guts spilled everywhere. What we doing, show, if you had to make me click a content warning? Maybe this is a good idea, maybe it's not. I don't know. But we're gonna find out, right? We're gonna find out and just see how it goes. So yeah, it's raining outside. My dogs are at my feet because they don't like the rain. So humor them, my little doggy dogs. I feel like Gambino here with like dogs at my feet, but I'm not nearly as bloodlusty as Gambino. So we're gonna go ahead and start episode 12. We're at the halfway point at this point, right? Isn't that crazy? Halfway through. There's 25 episodes, so we're almost halfway through the anime for Berserk, which is insane to me, but what can we do? So you'll probably hear rain, but we're gonna start episode 12 of Berserk, and we're gonna do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Man, so I get why this series is so well liked and so influential. Oh my gosh, I love it more each and every week. It just gets better and better, and getting Casca's version of Griffith's development is very interesting because of all of our main cast, I mean, obviously Guts is mysterious in himself with the whole his being born from a corpse thing. That is mysterious in itself. But we've known Guts' backstory of being raised by Gambino, being in the mercenary group. His story is seemingly pretty straightforward at this point. Now, we get back into the little birth thing that may change a lot, but Griffith has been one of those characters that has been shrouded in mystery, and we didn't really even get anything into his past necessarily. We just get Casca's past when she met Griffith, which has not been a crazy long time ago, and then how they've developed over time, right, as a group, right? So Griffith, what's interesting is that Griffith is maybe older than what he appears, and Casca, we don't really know the ages of them right now. We know it's been like 3 years since they first met. I'm assuming it's been 2 or 3 years back even further when she met him, so they've known each other for 6 or 7 years now, whereas Guts has known Griffith for about 3 years. It's interesting. We got a lot about Griffith from Casca's perspective, a lot about Casca, and then again, developing Casca and Guts' relationship. It really is a love triangle. Guts just doesn't quite know it's a love triangle, but he should. Casca's figured it out. And this series being as progressive as it is for the 90s, just being like, yeah, this is, and I'm sure that there's some people that are saying that Griffith was just selling his body, that he's not gay, but I mean, come on. Yeah, he is. Griffith is. And there's nothing wrong with that. And Casca being progressive as hell. We'll talk about that scene. And then Guts. I love Guts felt like a little schoolgirl. He was like, no freaking way. He slept with a guy. But that wasn't the thing. For Casca, it was that man. And we'll talk about it when we get to the scene of the scene in the river where he's bathing. Oh my God, the visuals. What I also really loved about this episode was how they did the flashback. It wasn't like in grainy black and white or sepia tone. Everything was muted, but it was muted in a way that everything was like highlighted. Everything was in a much lighter tone, and it wasn't something like it was showing from a favorable perspective. Casca was looking at the past from a favorable point of view until Griffith comes along. I love she's telling this whole flashback to Guts, and he's just sitting back like I'm like, girl, I understand that you are mad at Guts because he took your man and he doesn't even realize it. I get your frustrations, but girl, when he's leaning back there and there's like an 8-pack in front of you, there's just nothing. I'm like, girl, if you would just be nice to Guts, things could be a lot better. It's just so funny, and Guts is just so like why? I just love that she told this entire flashback, and at the very end, she used it as a way to nag at Guts. He's like, I thought we were doing something great, and you still nag at me. It's like, but I am glad that she finally came out and talked to him. And finally let him know exactly what's been bothering her. Because Guts this entire time has been like, I don't know what her problem is. Well, now he does. Now he knows what the problem is. And whether he realizes it's been this way or not, yeah, that's the problem. And so I'm just like, oh my God, yes, please. But let's talk about this. I say each episode's like my favorite episode. This is definitely my top 5. I love this episode so much. It's a really, really good backstory episode that gives us character development on Guts, Griffith. Because at this point, yeah, Guts, Griffith, and Casca are our trio. They're our love triangle. Guts just doesn't realize it. And I love the dynamic between all 3 of them. We're nearly halfway through the series at this point as far as the anime is concerned. We have plenty of manga left to go. But it's interesting that we spend this episode and the last episode specifically, and the episode before, like episodes 10, 11, and 12, have all been developing Guts, Casca, and their relationship. So I feel as if that is leading towards, if you notice, she does not tell Guts that she thinks that he's going to go off with Charlotte, but she's thinking it. But I think she doesn't want to tell Guts because she doesn't think Guts will understand, which she's pretty right in that department. I wouldn't tell Guts either. He probably wouldn't understand or get it either, or he'd jump to some weird conclusion. But I feel like she knows, and the plot knows, that Griffith will do whatever it takes to achieve his dream. He slept with this pedophile. He's willing to... compared to sleeping with the pedophile, marrying Charlotte is like freaking having cake. Like, there is... Like, he's moved up the ladder in terms of sacrifices, right? I mean, Charlotte's a sweet bean. Marrying her is going to be a cakewalk, you know, even if he doesn't mean anything by it. And Casca knows he doesn't. So it's like, that's the thing. She's steeling herself with resolve, knowing that he's going to keep moving up the ladder. She may not be involved. And she's also mad because of all people for him to reach out for. She's always been the one reaching out to him. And the one person that he reaches out for is Guts, who has no clue and doesn't know how much of a privilege it is in Casca's eyes to be reached out by Griffith. But we'll talk about this. So in this, she says, the first thing we see is Griffith. And I also love the way that she views Griffith. Every time he's on screen, there's this ethereal glow. His hair is perfect. Like, we see him through her eyes, and he looks the most beautiful that you can imagine. And that's because to her, he's her savior. Or at least she said, I used to think he was an angel. I like also the self-awareness that Casca has, where she realizes and is self-aware that how she viewed him in the past is not necessarily how she should have. And that's so smart. I love Casca's character so much. You've learned what it means to fight, haven't you? Yep, and then we see him like looking so beautiful there, and her eyes just sparkling. And then she wakes up. So in the cave, Guts has already gotten dressed and everything with the quote-unquote boyfriend shirt that we'll give. And then she's like, oh, you're in a cave. We fell in the river and survived. And he like got her a little blanket and everything. And I love that he's like, come on, you don't remember anything? Guts is, bless his heart, Guts is, he tries. But he's a himbo. He can't help it. I was so proud of him last episode because he was so sweet and tender with her. But he's kind of a tsundere, a little bit. Not a whole lot. I don't know if tsundere is the right word for Guts. But he's not very, which granted, he's not been around a lot of women that we know of. So he's not very good at expressing himself, at least emotionally. He's just a guy carrying a sword half the time, right? I'm going to put Griffith over here because I feel like we're going to use the most space for him. And then I want to put Casca here and Guts over here. They are our trio. Bless their bones. Our beautiful triangle. And I love that he brought back water for her in the little helmet. It's really cute. He's like, don't you remember anything? You could be so nonchalant. We nearly drowned to death. Like, he's just being kind of his annoying self. And then she gets up and he's like, oh, no. Your fever hasn't gone down. I thought he was going to complain because she was naked. And yeah, it comes, like, the blanket comes down, she realizes it too. And then I want to hit Guts so much because he was so tender in the last episode, like so soft and tender. And he just doesn't know how to socially, like, broach the subject with her without being his traditional brazen self. So he's like, oh, don't blame me. You were freezing and completely drenched. I had to do it. And in her mind, she has the same reaction that he had, right? I mean, what's funny about it is that Guts has come such a long way. Like, before, it was like no touching, no physical contact. And here, he saved Casca through the act of physical, not intimacy, but physical touch. I mean, that's huge for Guts, not only to save someone, but to do so by sleeping next to him. Like, that's a big leap for his character, right? But she has a very similar reaction that he did. And honestly, based on her past, where she was assaulted, I could see how she doesn't know how to read Guts. Here's the thing. Guts has now heard things from Casca's side. He knows about her. He's wanted to know about her, and he's gotten her to talk. But now the shoe needs to flip, and she needs to learn about Guts. And I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but anytime soon. But she needs to know about him. in order to, you know, move forward. And yeah, her just punching him. I love that the mangaka makes her have like a solid arm for that punch. It's just pretty solid. And poor Gutsy animation where he's like, why'd you do that? Like, why'd you punch my face? Like, I just tried to help. He's like, that hurt. He's like, I'm the one who saved your life. He's so expressive. And then he jumps out and she throws everything, like all the armor, everything. The tin, like the clothes, he's like, lay off. And then, yeah, shoots the knife right above his head. It's great. And then, yeah, she's just sitting there with the blanket, just being mad at him. And he's like, enough of this crap. I love he has his hands on his hips, like, enough of this. Like, come on. He's like, excuse me, princess. He's like, you're hysterical. He's like, I don't want to make a big deal out of it. I love it. But I risked my life dragging you out of the river by your damned armor. You could at least show some gratitude. But instead you hurl a knife at me. And then this line, I'd beat you and dislocate your jaw if you weren't a woman. And that's what gets her. She's like, really? Really? Because that to her is the sign that this isn't really about equal things, right? Because Guts makes the comment that if she weren't a woman, he'd fight back. And to her, she gets mad because she said she did not choose to be a woman. And it's like, girl, I feel for her because she's just saying, she's like, look, I didn't choose this. So I didn't ask for you to treat me any differently than you would anybody else. And she's like, that just, to her, it feels like I don't think Guts means it to be condescending or sexist. Bless his himbo heart. He's just trying to be like, Guts just wanted her to be, you know, grateful and not freak out when she woke up, and she freaked out. And so Guts was like, he's like, I just asked not to be, you know, freaked out at and have all my stuff thrown at me, you know. He's like, I'm not going to fight you back. But then he adds in the line about her gender, and she gets so frustrated because she's like, look, this isn't what I chose. Quit treating me like, and to her it goes back to Adon, where he says, a mere woman like you acting like a knight. She gets so frustrated. He's like, you're easily driven into a frenzy. I'm like, well, dude, have you ever been around a girl in her period? It kind of happens. And he says, that's why a woman like you isn't cut out for war. There's a lot of little tiny points of phrases that are thrown out here. Like the phrase, like you and like that. Guts isn't saying that she's not cut out for war because she's a woman. He's not saying that in that line. He's saying that her specifically isn't cut out for war because she keeps on getting in a frenzy. That's what he's saying. He's saying a woman like you isn't cut out for war because you get driven into a frenzy. You get too emotional too quickly. And I'm like, pot calling the kettle black, sir. Like, you get emotional very quickly too, right? But she doesn't read it like that, and instead interprets it as him saying because she's a woman, she's not cut out for war. But we know from the last episode that Guts thinks she's a good fighter, and he's never complained. Guts has never really complained about her being in the army at all, not like some of the other guys. And even them, they changed their tune after she proved herself to be like on equal footing with them. But I don't think Guts was necessarily saying that she wasn't cut out for battle because she was a woman, just the way she was acting, right? So, and that's what gets her upset. And he's like, hey, don't cry. And then she just gets frustrated. She's like, it's not my choice. I was not born as a woman by choice. And Guts has this look on his face like, well, shit, I didn't mean it like that. And he tries to go over there and says, well, I'm sorry. And I do feel for Guts a little bit because he does apologize. Like, he immediately goes, well, I'm sorry. Like, you know, he's like, what do I do? And she just gets mad at him. And she's like, damn you. And he's like, you crazy broad. Calm down. And then, yeah, she says, let go. But she's like all worked up with the fever and everything. And he's like, this is what I'm talking about. I told you so. You're not well. Like, you don't feel good. And so that's when he gives her the boyfriend shirt, which is really cute. Guts is a big giant man. I love he gives her the boyfriend shirt and she can literally fit her entire body into it. It's very cute. I imagine there's been lots of fan art of her in the shirt, as there should be. and he gives it to her to put on. And he's like, what? He's like, are you still crying? And she's like, shut up and turn around. And he's like, ugh. He's like, what's the big deal? He's practically seen her naked. You were the last person I ever wanted to be rescued by. I'm like, damn it, right? Says that she does not like guts. And it's such a weird thing because we'll put Griffith here. We'll put Guts here. We'll put Casca here for now, right? And come back to this triangle later. But it's so frustrating because she doesn't like Guts because that's who Griffith has decided to like. And she's like, it should have been me. One of those deals. And she's like, the last person she wants to be rescued by is Guts because she doesn't think that Guts appreciates her or views her as an equal person or as anything but a woman. And Guts, meanwhile, is just trying to understand her and figure out what the hell to do because he doesn't know. He's socially the most awkward of the three and doesn't know how to handle this. And then he says, great, she really hates me. Like, I don't think Guts wants her to hate him. He doesn't hate her. Guts is trying. He's just failing. He's trying to understand. So, yeah, Guts is trying. He's trying to understand. He's given it a try, but she is mad at him, and she doesn't understand him. My only hope is that now that he knows her story and now that he knows her relationship with Griffith and what's going on, it will help their relationship. But again, she needs to understand him, and that's where we need backstory with the two of them. And I don't think we're going to get that anytime soon. That may be a manga thing, if it's even a possibility. Meanwhile, Guts just wants to become an equal to Griffith so that they can be best friendos. And meanwhile, Griffith is a little harder to read, right? Because I feel like Griffith likes Guts. He likes Guts, but he's still also using Guts. It's very interesting because I'm kind of torn with how I feel about that. Meanwhile, Griffith, I think he is happy to have Casca in his troop, and he confides in her. So she's a confidant. He's somebody that he trusts. There we go. He trusts Casca. He trusts her, but does he like her? He has friends. Yes, that's it. They have been friend zoned. If they're even friends, he talked about they're not even friend zoned, they're troop zoned because he said friends were equals, and I do not think he views Casca as an equal. They are troop zoned. They're in the army with him. They're being used by him. He trusts Casca. He values her opinion, but he does not call them equals to her. He does not consider her an equal to him, but he knows that she's going to be there if he needs her. So we'll talk about Griffith, but yeah, he's troop zoned Casca, and Casca's mad about it. She's like, why couldn't I be? And I feel like that whole line of I wasn't born a woman by choice, it could refer to her being mad because she can't. I mean, in her location and that time period, even though this is a fictional world, yeah, being a woman sucks. Being like sexually harassed, being targeted, being objectified, being viewed by the patriarchy a certain way. Like, she's going through the ringer with it. She's like, I hate all of this. If I was born a dude, I wouldn't have to worry about any of this. Which is, I do appreciate the story saying that's not exactly true. Because then we get to the guy who's the pedophile and he has all the boys. So, just because you're born a man does not guarantee that bad things are not going to happen to you like what happened to her. And I think that's very important to note. But that also makes me wonder if her saying that she wished she wasn't born a woman could refer to the fact that she's like, if I was born a man, maybe Griffith would like me. And I'm like, maybe that's what she's getting at, because she knows firsthand from seeing the boys there that just because you are born a woman doesn't guarantee you're not going to be in those situations. But I think it could be that if she'd been born a man, Griffith would have cared for her more. Or at least that's what she thinks, right? But poor Guts, he's like, she's great now, she hates me. Meh, meh, meh. And so I do appreciate Guts making the effort to talk to her and try to understand her. Him being like, him initiating conversation is huge. Him initiating conversation is incredible because I would never have imagined Guts doing this like 6 episodes ago. No way. He says, "Isn't it tough to be a woman in this business, no matter the circumstances?" And he's like, "Well, it's not my business." He's like, "Why would a woman want to even be a soldier?" He's like, "No." I guess Guts asks because he's like, "There's not exactly any other." He's like, "You're likely to get harassed. You could, what happens when your period happens? All this stuff." He's like, "Why would you want to be here? Like, doesn't this seem like a bad idea to you?" And then she finally decides to tell him. She says, "Griffith, I joined because of Griffith." And then I love the flashback. So we get the idea of where she's from, being from this small town in the mountains where what's interesting is we get the idea that this war's been going on for a long time. For not just the 3 years that we've known, but like many years, like even before when Guts was a little kid. Like this has been going on for a very, very long time. And she's from a really poor part of the country that has been overtaxed and they don't have a lot of resources. And their village constantly gets attacked over and over again, making it hard for them to live. And she's like, "I just thought that's how things were." And it's so interesting that what she thought was the status quo, Guts kind of looks at it from the fact, it was giving me like a Vinland Saga vibe, where he was kind of like, "Well, I was probably in one of the armies that raided villages like yours, and you were in the villages getting raided." So you can kind of see Guts is drawn so well, and they do so good with his expressions and all of his like little micro expressions that he does throughout the episode. You can just tell in that moment when she's talking to him about this that he has this look on his face like, I could have been very well have been one of the people burning your village down. I understand where you're coming from. Like he just exactly knows what she's talking about. And then we get the idea that her family sells her off to this nobleman. And the fact that she had siblings and they needed the money. She was the youngest daughter. She was kind of at the bottom of the food chain. And they let her go. It give me, if you know Reba McEntire, she has a song called "Fancy." It's like a country person's anthem, and it's about a girl that was basically sold into prostitution because her mom couldn't afford to like have food for her and her kid anymore. Yep, this is like Casca's living out the fancy life, and then Griffith is the well young man that comes and saves her, right? It's really hard, like, because as soon as the guy's in the carriage with her, you know what he's thinking. And it's just the fact that Casca thought for a hot second that this guy was maybe going to treat her with kindness. And that's not the case. I'm going to say aesthetically, just as an artistic aesthetic, when she's thrown on the ground as a kid and the guy rips open the shirt, I'm just going to say, like, clinically, they do show a lot more anatomy than they do show her as an older person. I think it's for the dramatic effect of making that moment look as uncomfortable as possible, right? But then Griffith comes by. And what's so fascinating is that I'm glad that he comes by when he does, because I wasn't putting it past this show to give us a scene of sexual assault, but I was really hoping we weren't going to have to endure it. I was like, please no. And luckily Griffith comes by and chucks a sword at her. Basically, I love that he looked divine, like an angel. God mercifully sent an angel to this pathetic and powerless girl. And what I love about it is that she believes at first that Griffith is going to save her. But that is not what happens. No. She views herself as pathetic and powerless at first, right? But Griffith gives her power. By the power of Grayskull, he chucks a sword at her and says, "If you want to save yourself, here's your chance." And honestly, that sounds cruel, but in the world that they're living in, Griffith is saying, girl, you are going to be the target of a lot of people now that your families gave you up. If you don't know how to defend yourself, you're going to die. So it's kind of like Griffith is like, I'm going to give you this means of survival. Are you going to be able to survive or not? And he was standing there, so it's like, I think if things had gotten out of control, he might have saved her, but he might not have. We don't know. The point is, she manages The helping hand he gives her is the sword. And God, the animation, the way they drew her like stabbing the nobleman, like every line, every little detail, the lighting, the shading, the muted colors, everything about this entire scene. The only thing that's not muted is the blood. In this entire flashback, the only thing not muted is blood. And it's just as vibrant, as red as it could be. And it's beautiful. Like it's sickly and beautiful. And she's like, I was frightened. And here's the thing. She says, did I stab him with my sword or did he accidentally impale himself? So, at this point, Griffith has the behelit. He's had it. He had it when he met Casca. He's had it since then. Did the behelit have any effect on the outcome of that sword match? Did the behelit influence it in any way? Because there's this idea about fate, and the behelit, once Griffith is using it to help him rule the world, so it's like letting him help rule in exchange for flesh and blood, right? So did the nobleman get sacrificed and to bring Casca into the fold? Did the behelit know that Casca would be somebody that would influence Griffith in a good way, and so it let her live? Or was it just Casca and her skill and her resolve to live? I think it could be either one. I think it could be either one. But it's fascinating to wonder if there's anything involved. And I love Griffith with his hand like on her leg with the sword and the blood. That may be the thumbnail, is of him looking at her as she's holding the sword of the blood. That may be the thumbnail. It's a beautiful shot. But Griffith is very like, he constantly has like a physical connection with Casca. And that's another thing, too, that I think points to the fact that Griffith, that not to the fact of his sexual orientation necessarily, but the fact that she's okay with Griffith touching her speaks volumes, because she doesn't like anybody else touching her because of that trauma that she endured with the nobleman. But Griffith, it's okay because he saved her. And there's never been, I think one of the things that the troop zoned effect with Griffith is that he's never at any time made any sort of advance towards her. And she doesn't necessarily view that as a bad thing, but I think that allows her to be close to him and feel more at ease, right? Which she should feel at ease with Guts now, because Guts hasn't tried anything. He wasn't trying to do anything with her, so I want her to feel more at ease with Guts as well, especially because he listened to her story and helped her and everything, and he clearly wants to understand her. So I feel like I want her to feel more at ease with Guts, but I still feel like it's an uphill battle with both of them. And she's like a true helping hand. She's like, what I love about that is that she said, he didn't treat me like a damsel in distress. He didn't say, I'll save you, and come in and on his white knight and shining armor horse and like save the day. No, he treated her like someone that was worthy of respect and said, here's your sword, save yourself. Like, he didn't just treat her like a girl that needed help. And that was the true helping hand. And that's so fascinating to me. I love that about it. And I love that she just has that look, like her eyes on her face, that little look on as she looks up to him. She's like, what am I supposed to do? And he says, do whatever you like. So Griffith's whole thing is, again, he says, do whatever you like. He said that from episode 1. Or from episode 2, rather. He said, do whatever you like. Like, he's always told his men, like, you do whatever you want. I want to make note that Corcus is here, as well as Judo and Pippin. Rickert is not in the band, as far as we can see. And she asks him to bring her with him. And they're like, oh, don't be silly. They're like, we can't bring, like, a kid and women with us. And she's like, I'll learn how to wield a sword if that's what it takes. And she's like, so please. And they're like, oh, she's serious. And Griffith says, what if you wind up dead? And she like steals herself, and he smiles. So, seems like she's up for it. Like, and honestly, I think Griffith agrees, because he knows, like, if she just goes off on her own, she's probably not going to survive. So he's like, this is honestly probably the best route for you for now. And if you can't cut it, then we'll just drop you off somewhere. And he just smiles and lets her go. He says, I told you, do whatever you like. He's like, it's up to you whether you follow me or not. You've learned what it means to fight, haven't you? And he's basically saying, like, you know, if you come with us, you're going to have to kill some people. Are you okay with that? And she looks at the blood on her hands and decides that, yeah, she's fine with it. And so, yeah, she steals herself. And then I love just that muted, like, manga shot where there's the flowers, like the dandelions in the breeze, and her looking up at Griffith. It's great. Everything has changed since the day I met him. From a life of enduring and waiting for things to happen to a life where I fight for my aspirations. I love that shot of her in the boyfriend shirt, like doing, like hugging her knees and everything. And then we get Guts's beautiful back muscles as he's like listening to the story of what's going on. Also, his body language and demeanor changes throughout the course of the story. He starts with his back to her, and then he slowly leans back to listen and slowly does this. Like he's slowly getting comfortable listening to her story. It's funny, but I love that she says, I was waiting to fighting for my ambitions. That's so good. She's like, I went from just waiting for things to happen to creating my own destiny, which is so inspiring for her. And of course, I worshipped Griffith. And I like that she puts it in past tense. I worshipped him, meaning that she does not worship him now. That's important to note. She does not worship him now. She's like, I don't view him as like this golden child that I once did. I realize he's pretty much human like all of us. And then we cut back to they're saying we were an outcast and commoner group that became invincible on the battlefield, led by Griffith. And even his origin is even common, just like ours. So it's basically this idea of rallying by relation, that Griffith can compare to his troops because he's like, I'm common born like you are, but I believe this is my dream and I want you all to fight with me. And we'll talk about that when he's in the lake, like taking the bath. She's like, he's a miracle, the embodiment of a miracle. And I like that Guts's face. Guts's face is kind of like, okay, yeah, I guess. She says that Griffith is a miracle for someone of common birth to lead them and be able to be as powerful as he is and undefeated. And I'm like, well, he has that behelit, so maybe that's the miracle, right? I love Guts just looks kind of like unamused by that wording. And so then she talks about, she says, somehow I managed to thrive as a soldier. We became involved in a territorial dispute led by a local nobleman. Again, it amazes me that Casca rose up the ladder from being like a girl that was just handed a sword one day to save her life, and she rose up to be second in command. Like, girl, that is nothing to shake a stick at. That is really, really something. And she still feels inadequate. That's the hard thing, is that she's done so much. She's gotten, regardless of being a woman, being a woman has nothing to do with it, but the idea of a person just being handed a sword and saving their own life one day and then rising up to be second in command of the most invincible army in the area, regardless if you're a man or a woman, that's a huge accomplishment. And it's so hard to see her not be able to view herself in the end as being satisfied with that because Griffith doesn't accept her the way that he accepts Guts. It's so frustrating, right? Because you just wanted to be like, Casca, girl, you're fine, but it's not good enough for her. The nobleman was very well known and wealthy. Also, the creepy crawdad as his sigil. Yeah, you should have known he was a scumbag because he had a crawdad as his family crest. He had a bad reputation where he was a pedophile, basically, with all of these. I kept thinking they were going to get Rickert from this group, that maybe Rickert was going to be one of the boys that they rescued and took with them. And then we saw the boy on the battlefield. For a second, I thought it was Rickert and he'd been injured and they were going to save him. And then it's like, nope, he's dead. And I'm like, well, damn it. But the boy that died was one of the ones that came with them. And I like that Casca's like, I realized that could have been me. If I hadn't been saved by Griffith, that could have been me. And I'm lucky that I got in the situation that I am. And as she's thinking that and having all this fear and hatred in her, it reminded me such a thing could happen to me. And that's when Griffith puts his hand on her shoulder and just smiles at her like, hey, don't worry, it's fine. Like, you're not in the same position as those kids. And she smiles back at him, and it's like this very sweet moment. She's like, it made me stop shivering. And what I thought was going to happen was that Griffith and her were going to orchestrate this thing where they killed the nobleman and took all the spoils. That's what I thought. I thought they were going to like raid the nobleman and take all the spoils and like go back to the other people and be like, hey, look at the deed we did. Now pay us money and save the kids. Nope. That's not what happens. We'll talk about that in the window scene. But it shows them on the battlefield. The moment that changed Griffith was seeing the kid that went with them. A boy was an apprentice soldier who joined half a year before. And we see Pippin. He shows up with the possessions that the kid had left, his belongings, and there was a little knight toy. And Griffith saying he must have wanted to be a knight. Because she gets really sad. He's like, he really wanted to be a knight. And I've taken his dream from him. He says, I remember this boy well. He always gazed at me as one might admire the hero of a story. Yeah, and then Griffith saying, did I destroy his dream? He's like, I wonder if he was happy. Did he die as if in a dream, one close to being fulfilled? And I like that in the sun, I like that Griffith is like, he's like, it's almost like he's inside the behelit. The way the sun is red and he's crouched down inside of it, it looks like he's inside of a behelit. He says, I think my dream must have murdered this boy. And the behelit being the same shape as that sun in that moment is not coincidence, I don't think. So Griffith wonders, is his dream killing those of others? And I think that's the answer is yes, by the way. And I think that's such a moment for Griffith because I don't think he had maybe realized that at that point. He was leading his armies, but seeing the little boy there with the knight figurine and realizing what he probably wanted to be when he grows up, he's like, man, you all are following me with your own agendas and your own paths, but you're following me. So am I, responsible for your dream being taken? And he'll answer that question, but he's later in the pond, but he thinks about it. And she notes that it was the first time she really saw him depressed. Since that moment, he gradually began to look different. I like that she's noticed this gradual shift in his character from the moment the kid died, knowing that it's slowly taken a toll on him and affected him and his actions. Then we have a few nights after our return from that battle, then we have the window scene. And she looks up and sees him shirtless there, looking down on the window. And she calls to him, and that's when the nobleman shows up. For a second, it looked like he had sunglasses on. It looked like the nobleman had sunglasses. And then the way that Griffith looks at her, it's so cold. He just looks at her like, yeah, no, don't say a word. And he goes back with that man. And I love Guts is like, no way, you gotta be kidding me. Like, just like the tea is spilt. The tea is spilt, right? That Griffith slept with the nobleman. But my thing is that she goes, a proud guy. And he says, a proud guy like him. And that's kind of what gets me about Guts and Casca, is that neither of them are really judging Griffith for being with a man, but the fact that it was the pervy nobleman. That's what it is. And I'm like, hello. Like, she goes, yeah. She sees Griffith and the lake. The lake scene's my favorite in this whole episode. It's so good. She sees him bathing in the lake, and he's just sitting there, like, holding himself. And it's kind of one of those moments where, he's, like, washing off the nastiness from that gross man. And she, like, goes to walk away and leave because she feels like it's not appropriate for her to see him like that. But then he says, Casca, won't you join me? And I do love Griffith for that, because I think he views Casca in a non-sexual way, for sure. Because, he's fine with her bathing with him, means nothing to him. I was going to say he views her regardless of her gender, But in the episode where Guts comes to them, he makes her sleep next to him because she's a woman. So I can't necessarily say that, but he definitely is not interested in her and views her as just one of the troops, right? And he's like, "Do you think I'm disgusting?" Oh, I love that he's like, I love the motion, the animation of him like with his hands through his hair was so well done. But just the way he says, "Do you think I'm disgusting?" He's like, "Do you disapprove of me sleeping with a man?" And she says, "No." And then she corrects herself. She says, "Why?" She says, "Why were you there last night?" And I love when Griffith runs this. The animation of Griffith running his hands through his hair is so damn good. And she's like, "Was I mistaken, right?" And she's like, "Last night you were there for a war council or something." And he's like, "No, you saw me shirtless." And he just is standing there. "You weren't mistaken." And her response is what gave me. He's like, "How could you with a man like that?" The whole "like that" line. She's not mad because he was with a man. That didn't bother her. She was mad because he was with that pedophile. That's why she was mad. And so she's like, "Why were you with that perverted man?" Like, no. Like, why was it him? And he says, "For money." That's not what I was expecting. No. For money. I thought that he was sleeping with the man so he could get close to him to kill him, to save the kids. Nope. It's not it, because you know why? Saving those kids will not further his advancement to becoming king. Won't serve him a purpose. So Griffith very much is like, do what you like, do what you please, but he's like, I don't have time to save everybody. I've got my dream I'm living for. Sorry about your luck, kids, but the world's cruel. I gotta be on my merry way. And that kind of floors me in a way, because I don't know why I thought he would save them, but I thought that he would kill the man. But nope, it's all, Griffith is not going to do it unless it's something that will benefit him. And he says for money, he's like, "We have an army to maintain and it costs a lot, and this is what I have to do. Nothing is free in this world, so I've got to be able to pay for it." And he's like, "We need to expand the band." He's like, so Griffith's saying, "I'm willing to sell my body if it means do it." And whenever he like turns around, and I love that. What does he say? He's like, "The old man is interested in me and I'm interested in his fortune. That's all there is to it." And she's like, "Why can't things stay as the way they are?" She's like, "If we keep on winning, we'll earn all the money that we need for you to gradually become king." And he says, "That's going to take too long. And the more we fight, the more we lose soldiers." Now, he says that losing that kid had no impact on him and did not impact his views on the situation. But I agree with Casca. I think he's lying. I think the kid dying opened Griffith's eyes to the fact that these people are dying for him, and the longer they fight in battle, the more people he's going to lose. But he says it's just good business. He's like, "I can't afford to lose these people, right? We need to risk losing less." And he's like, "I feel no responsibility to comrades who've lost their lives under my command because they choose to fight in each battle." But as he says that, he's like gripping his arms, right? And drawing blood. It takes a lot of pressure to dig your nails into your skin and like peel the flesh back. It takes a lot of pressure to do that. I was like, oof, that made my skin crawl. But he says that these people chose to follow me. And that kind of goes back to this line here, "Do as you like." It's kind of like you sign a liability clause. When you join Griffith's band, when you join the band of the Hawk, you sign a liability clause. He's like, "Do whatever you like. Are you sure you want to come? That's up to you. I mean, I'm not pressuring you. No pressure here. No, like, I'm not pulling your arm or anything. So if you sign up, you are agreeing that you could die in battle, and you're fine with that." He's like, "I don't feel any regret or remorse when my comrades die, or responsibility, because they chose to follow me. I didn't make them do it." He's like, "They're not slaves. I didn't make them. They just follow me because they want to." But I like the idea, this monologue that he has here. And she's like, "Griffith, what the hell?" He's like, "Just as I chose this." Oh. It's like, I chose, but if there's something that I can do for them. Something I can do for the dead than it is to win. So Griffith is like, I chose to go down this path. I made this decision to become king. I knew the job was dangerous when I took it. So I've got to take responsibility. And he's like, the only way that I can show respect for the dead is to move forward and win and achieve my goal. That's how I can show respect to them, is if I win. And God, this whole monologue that he gives is absolutely wonderful. He's like, I have to keep winning to attain my dream. It's the same one that they clung to and risked their lives for, right? He's like, they all clung to me to help me achieve it. And I think that kind of goes back to him deciding what a friend to him is. It reminds me a little bit of the case study of Vanitas, which I've been watching around the same time. And in that series, the main character, he doesn't want to love anybody that he says, I don't want to love anybody that's in love with me, because he will feel that responsibility if they die, because they were dying clinging to him. And he's like, I don't want that. I don't want a committed person with me. And I feel that Griffith is kind of the same way. He's like, I don't want to like somebody that just hero worships me, right? He's like, no. That's why Casca doesn't work for Griffith, aside from other things, because he's like, she worships me too much. She clings too much. And he's like, I can't do that. I need somebody that can let me achieve my dream. They're achieving their dream, and we can just work side by side, which is what I think he wants Guts to be. And I think that's what he saw in Guts at the beginning, was he thought Guts was somebody that had his own agenda. And then he realized after he got into the army, he's like, oh, well, maybe you don't. Maybe you are kind of just a stray that I can use, but you don't have your own purpose. So, okay. And it wasn't what he expected. Maybe, I don't know, but that idea that he just wants to keep, and I love that the image of the red blood and the behelit and his porcelain skin. He says to risk thousands of lives while never getting myself dirty. He's like, that's not gonna work. It's not a dream that can be so easily realized. It was giving me a lot of Erwin Smith vibes from Attack on Titan. The idea that you have a dream, that both him and Erwin have a dream they want to attain, and they are not afraid to involve people and for people to die for the sake of their dream. They're fine with it. If it gets their dream accomplished, whatever. But he's realizing that you have to get dirty. You have to get dirty to win. So he's like, yeah, I'm sleeping with this pedophile because that's what I can do. And that's what I have to do to maintain money for my army. Everybody's out there on the battlefield fighting for me, so I have to fight for myself. And this is what I can do. As gross as he hates it, right? Oh my God. It's so good. It's so good. His monologue is absolutely amazing. And then I love that Casca comes up and makes him stop hurting himself. Don't talk like that anymore. And I feel like at that point, what's so mysterious about Griffith is that we don't see what his eyes look like, and we don't see him smile or cry or anything. He just kind of looks numb. He just looks like he just is doing things for himself, and it's all just come out in this moment. But her embracing him, what's so frustrating is he gets instantly mysterious again, and I wanted him to hug her back or do something, but he doesn't. He doesn't do it. Instead, he just stands there and lets her hug him for a second. And then he turns around and grabs her hand. And he says, it's all right. It's nothing. And everything was back to normal. I like that we get this one little moment. We've had one little moment of Griffith showing his vulnerability. This one moment, she gets to see it. And then it's gone. Then everything's back to the way that it was. Right? And she's like, I was sad because he was like that, and he was instantly over it. Casca's like, he didn't have time to mourn. He didn't feel the need to mourn. He didn't feel the need to be sad. He didn't seem like he could afford to do so. And she's like, most people have abandoned their dreams long ago. to just stay, but Griffith is still trying to realize his. And I like at this point, Guts is back there like, go on, keep talking. Like, he's just like just flexed out there. It's great. But she's like, a lot of people in the band of the Hawk have given up on their own dreams, and now they're just living for Griffith. But Griffith's still trying to become king, and she's still trying to realize her dream to be by his side. It's so pure and monumental in scale. The burden he has to carry is incredibly heavy. One who plans to achieve great things inevitably endures terrible things. That's such a true statement. Like, if you want to achieve something great, you're going to probably have to endure something terrible. It's not going to come easy to you. And especially if you're trying to become king. But yeah, I like that Guts just stares at her. He's not innately strong, but now he has to be stronger than ever. She's like, he's got prowess. I'm like, girl, you say he's not innately strong, but he just fought Zod like 6 episodes ago. I think he's okay. He's fine, right? He's not doing too bad. But yeah, so then she talks about, she like lifts up into the sun. She's like, I want to stand by him. If he dedicates himself entirely to his dream, then if he has to fight to create his dream, then I want to be his sword. She wants the same thing that Guts does. She wants to be a sword for him. She's like, I wanted to be a sword for him by his side. And it's so weird for me to call this series like the most romantic series I've watched, because you have 3 characters who technically don't have sexual feelings for each other, but they literally are. It's romantic feelings. It's not sexual, it's romantic. Like Griffith liking Guts and wanting him to like die for him, and Guts realizing that Griffith like is okay saving him, and they have this bond. And then Casca being like, I want to be by his side. I want to be a sword for him, which is essentially what Guts wants to be. Or at least that's what we thought. Now, this whole being equal thing might have thrown that into a different perspective. She's like, I want to be a sword for him. I want to stand by him, be a sword for him. I want to be something important that will help him fulfill his dream. And she's like, I thought my wish would be granted. I'm like, girl, the one thing that frustrates me in this moment is that I'm like, you are still important to Griffith. But she thinks that Guts has taken that role as being his sword. And I'm like, he's got 2 hands. He can wield 2 swords. Girl, do the math. I'm like, he can dual wield. It's fine. You can be by his side and Guts can be by his side. Why is this a contest? And that's when you showed up. She's like, do you remember what Griffith said to you on the hill that day? And she says, I want you to join us, Guts. She's like, those words, no one has ever been said such kind words before. And now it all makes sense. Because back then I was like, really? That's being kind? Yeah. Every other time he's told them to defend themselves and do what they want. But this is the one time that he demanded someone join. He didn't give him a choice. He said, no, you're coming with us. And she's like, why was that you? You don't even care. She's like, why couldn't it have been me? And all of the Guts is over here like, I don't know. He's like, I didn't ask for this either. She's like, I was very irritated by it. You made him say that to you without any effort at all, and I was envious. And I love that Guts, I'm glad Guts is hearing all of this, because he needs to. And she's like, I tried to convince myself that Griffith only needs you as a soldier, one who would strengthen us. But a man like Griffith acts impulsively when something happens to you. She's basically saying that he likes him. Yeah. She's like, I thought you were just a soldier to Griffith and he's just using you because it would make sense. You're a strong soldier, but he acts impulsive whenever he's around you. It's as if. And then Guts looks over like, as if what? As if he likes me? It's like, yes, Griffith has faith in you. I like that that's the terminology she uses. I'm like, no, it's as if Griffith likes him. But she says, it's as if he has faith in you. I'm like, okay, that's what we're calling it. And she says, but you, in return, you never think about the consequences. I love that Guts turns around like, oh, so that's it. We were telling the story and you used it to nag at me. Why am I not surprised? But this is where she lets out her frustrations. She's like, you never think about the consequences. And he's like, this old hat, this old chestnut, And her, like, getting on top of him. What I can't forgive is how your selfishness nearly got Griffith killed. I'm like, girl, it's been a while ago. And then her pushing him back. She's like, I don't care if you drop dead somewhere in battle. I'm like, girl, I wish she would. Her pushing him back against the wall. And he lets her get it all out of her system. I'll never forgive you if you ruin the Band of the Hawk and Griffith's dream. So she's like, I don't care if you die, but if it causes Griffith to lose his dream, I'll never forgive you. And Guts is like, I wasn't planning on dying anyway. And she's like, and I can't forgive you for making Griffith change like he has. And Guts is like, change for me? And I love her just crying. She's like, why? Why did it have to be you? Why did he choose you? And Guts is like, hell if I know. I love that Guts is like, I didn't even know the dude liked me like that. I love this moment. I love that she gets everything out of her system. And she's like, you just like, I don't care for you, but I don't want you to screw up this dream for Griffith. And I'm like, girl, it's so frustrating, right? Because here's the thing. Casca, and we're going to put C over here. Casca thinks that Griffith likes Guts. Clearly. Guts just wants to be friends with Griffith and wants to be friends with Casca and understand her. But it's not going so well. And then Griffith he wants to use Guts and use Casca. So it's like, does Griffith really like Guts? Like Casca thinks that he does? Is he just using the two of them? Will Guts be able to be friends with both Casca and Griffith? What I need to happen is there's no connection here other than what I need Casca to like at least respect Guts. Because she doesn't respect him at all. She doesn't think anything good of him at all. She's just like, thanks for saving me, but here now I'm going to unload all my reasons why I don't like you. I wish Casca would develop a friendship at least, or a respect for Guts. Because I think Guts is trying. He's trying. He's not being very successful, but he's trying to get on her good side, and I wish it would work out between them. It's so sad. And then I like that he says shush. I love that he tells her shush, because I was thinking the same thing. And then there's guards walking around. And so then Guts is like, we can't stay here or we're going to get found. And he's like, listen, take this for your fever, and we're going to have to get out of here. There's no time to rest anymore. We're going as soon as it gets dark. And she's like got herself steeled for that. Oh my God. So yeah, we learned a lot about Griffith, a lot about how far he's willing to go to accomplish his dream. And I don't think this is as far as he's willing to go. I think this is just like scratching the iceberg. I really do. I think Griffith is well able to do a lot of things to get his dream accomplished. I fully believe. But I do like that Casca has finally unloaded everything on Guts. I like that we got to see her and Griffith's relationship and how it developed. I wish she would develop a friendship with Guts, because Guts is trying. And I'm glad that Guts understands her a little bit more. Good. But now we have the problem of they have to get back to the others, right? Because I think what this episode has also shown is that Griffith chose the army and chose the battle over going to find them. I'm pretty sure. I'll be surprised if he sent a search party. I really will. If he did, I'll be like, that definitely, if he sends a search party to come help them, that will show a change compared to what Casca has shown us. So, I love Casca's character. Her character's amazing. Her and Guts' dynamic is amazing. I could see Guts and Casca being in a relationship if they would realize how similar they are. If Guts could talk to her like she's talked to him, I think they'd realize they both believe the same thing. I feel like they both think that Griffith has helped them find purpose. But they just can't articulate that to each other so that they know. You know? So I'm going to be waiting for the Guts to tell Casca how he feels moment, but I don't think that's not happening anytime soon. But who knows? But yeah, this show, so good. I can't wait to hear your thoughts down below. I know I'm watching ahead, but I will be taking notes of comments, and if I don't get those comments incorporated into the anime reactions, I've got a lot of manga to read, so you know we're gonna have some big manga discussions when we get to them. So don't worry, we'll have plenty of time for that. So, but in any case, I hope y'all enjoyed this reaction discussion. I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Berserk. Halfway point, y'all. See you then.